Welcome back to the channel. We're back on our Spider-Man Commander deck profile. Today with Spider-Woman, Stunning Savior. For one in either white or blue, you get a 2/2 with Flying and Venom Blast. Artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter tapped. So we're playing this pretty stack style. Her ability, like I said, makes it so your opponent's stuff enters tapped. So we want to make sure that either don't have ways to get that untapped, or ways to make sure that we could keep on tapping your stuff and make it hard to cast their stuff, and put them a turn behind. And plenty of counter spells to make sure that when they finally can cast something and get that mana untapped, no, they can't. But that's just a general overview of the deck. Let's get into it card by card. Starting us off, we have Arcane Signet for the mana. She's only 2 mana, and you tend to want her out as soon as possible. But since we're making things cost more to cast, sometimes that does affect us as well, so we want to make sure we have the mana for that. Curse Totem, activate abilities of creatures can't be activated. First way we're starting to shut down our opponent's plays. Activate abilities are a huge focus of a lot of decks, especially with Tasha's Cauldron, VV decks going around. So, helps us out do just that. Soul Ring for additional mana. Static Orb, as long as this is untapped, players can't untap more than 2 permanents or their untapped steps. So not only are their things entering tapped, it's also getting harder for them to have them untap in the first place. This way, especially if they're playing token decks, this comes in handy. Even if they're not, making it harder for them to untap their lands comes in real useful for this deck while we just fly in and deal some damage. Talisman of Progress for that mana. Torpor Orb. Creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to happen. A lot of decks also focus around like the Elish Norn style of effects, or Panharmonicon, Conjurer's Closet. Especially with this set, there's been like a lot of them, of like when this creature enters, do XYZ. So this will help us stop them right in their tracks. Winter Moon, players can untap more than one non-basic land during their untap step. Let's have players focus more on their basic lands. Sometimes people don't even run basic lands in their deck, and well, that's their fault. They should have thought about that. Winter Orb, as long as this is untapped, players can untap more than one land during their untap step. So I mean, like, maybe they did think about that, but we still have something that we thought about to think about that. If you do have a way to tap Winter Orb or Winter Moon, you can make it so you could untap your lands. And, well, sorry, just Winter Orb. Winter Moon doesn't do that secondary thing, whereas only if it's tapped. Or, sorry, untapped. So you can make it so you could untap your stuff and your opponents can't. On to our creatures, we have Archon of Emeria. For 2 and a white, you get Flying. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. Non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Once again, punishing them for playing those non-basic lands, and also making it so that they could only get their 1 play going a turn. Sometimes they could play during each player's turn, and they have all those instants. But still, having it so that they can only cast that 1 spell makes it so they can't combo off for the most part. Even Mind Sensor, preventing searching for your opponents. Doesn't fully prevent it, just makes it so they can only search the top 4 of their deck. Or the odds are what they're looking for is going to be in the top 4. We have Azor's Electors, one of our main win cons here for this deck, where at the beginning of your upkeep, put a filibuster counter on this card. Then, if it has 4 or more, you win the game. If we could manage to stall off our opponents long enough for this to just sit around for 5 turns, right? Oh, sorry, if it has, 5 or more. Or we don't necessarily have ways to, what's it called? Proliferate in this deck, but you could also run cards like that in order to get your game plan going a little bit further there as well. Following that up, we have Contaminant Priest, 2/2 with Flash. If a non-token creature would enter the battlefield, if it wasn't cast, exiled instead. Makes it so we could get around our opponents like Gishat style decks. Maybe we could get around some other fun decks that they may have, in order to, make sure that we have fun and no one else does. Following that up, we have Dragon Magistrate. Your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hand. Stops those exile decks, stop those graveyard decks, stop them from casting their commander, which, that's why this is a game changer. People want to play their commander in Commander, who would have guessed? But that's normally the main focus of their game plan, so let's stop it right in their tracks. Grand Abolisher, during your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities. Helps us make so that we could keep going during our turn with our opponent countering our stuff. Meanwhile, we have like 10 counter spells in this deck, I'm pretty sure. Grand Arbiter Augustine the Ford. Really nasty card. White spells and blue spells you cast cost 1 less to cast each. And then spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast. This is the main way you tend to run a stack style decks for Azorius. Pretty sure it's still the best one. But still, because you put yourself a turn ahead, put your opponents a turn behind. Really useful for you, really harmful for your opponents. Hushbringer, flying, lifelink, creatures entering the battlefield or dying don't cause abilities to happen. Shut off those aristocrat style decks, shut off those panharmonicon decks. Make it so that we just sit there and wait for our win to happen. Jing attacks as progress tyrant. Whenever you cast an artifact instant sorcery, copy it, choose new targets, and whenever an opponent casts their first artifact instant sorcery, counter that spell. If we have this plus Archon of Emeria, we're only able to cast one spell each turn. They better hope they have some creatures in their hand, otherwise, or enchantments, I should say. So otherwise, their spells are all getting countered because they only had the one. Lavinia, Azorius, Renegade. For white and a blue, you get 2/2. Each opponent can cast non-creature spells with mana value greater than the number of lands they control. AK shuts off artifacts, shuts off Convoke, shuts off Cascade. And whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana is spent to cast it, counter that spell. Another way counters Cascade. Another way counters, Discover. Leon and Arbiter, players can't search the libraries unless they pay 2 mana. It's going to be pretty hard for them to pay that 2 mana, especially when a lot of times what people are searching up are lands, and that's what they need the mana for. Linvala, Keeper of Silence, activate abilities of creatures your opponents control can't be activated, meaning that we have that another way to shut those types of decks off, just like the one we saw earlier. Spell-Tide Enforcer, whenever a player casts a spell, that player sacrifices a permanent unless they pay 1. Makes it so that they may have to start paying 1 extra to cast all their stuff. Or if they don't, maybe they could sacrifice a land. Or not. Yep, sacrifice a permanent, could be their land. Strix Proctor, flying. Whenever a permanent entering the battlefield causes an ability to happen, they have to pay 2 more for it to happen, or it gets countered. Otherwise, we don't like those panharmonicon decks. Let's shut them off. Dahlia, Heretic Kadar, creatures in non-basic lands your opponents control enter tapped. We already have Spiderwoman for creatures enter tapped, that's why we don't have the other Dahlia in here. But having it so non-basic lands enter tapped helps us progress their game plan backwards. It's not really progressing our game plan forward, it's just progressing other people's game plans backwards. And Windborn Muse. People are going to want to attack you. Let's make it hard as possible for them to do that, making them have to pay 2 mana for each creature they want to attack you with. For our enchantments, we have Arcane Laboratory. Each player can cast more than 1 spell each turn. Once again, shutting off our opponents as much as possible, making it so that they can play the game. And eventually we win somehow. Or Silence. Artifact enchantment spells cost 2 more to cast. It's only the ones our opponents cast, so we can still do ours fine. You also sacrifice it to destroy the artifact or enchantment they finally got out, if it's getting in your way. Authority Consoles, another way to make sure creatures enter tapped. I know also getting a little bit of life off of it, with how much we're probably going to be getting attacked. We're going to want to shut off those. We're going to want to gain at least a little bit of life. And also, having your opponent's cards enter tapped, helpful to us. Back to basics, non-basic lands don't untap or their controller's untapped steps at all. Yep, that's at all. So, that's why you want to make sure you run plenty of basic lands, because this deck doesn't like them. Frozen Aether, artifact creatures and lands your opponent's control come into play tapped. So, not only do they not untap, they come into play tapped. Also, same thing for your Soul Rings, your land and stuff anytime, and just your creatures, which, Spiderwoman was doing some of those, but still helpful to get some extra on there. Ghostly Prison, creatures can't attack you unless they pay 2 for each creature. That's a lot of mana they're going to need. Karmic Justice, whenever a spell or ability an opponent controls destroys a non-creature permanent you control, aka one of our enchantments, artifacts, something like that. Destroy target permanent that player controls. They're probably going to be wanting to try to get rid of some of our Ghostly Prisons or Monologue Taxes, but let's get rid of their stuff as well. So, not fair that only we got to get our stuff destroyed. Kismet, artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponent's control come into play tapped. We've seen the effect. We like the effect. Land tax. Another way to make sure we stay positive on lands. This way, if our opponents were able to get positive, we want to make sure we can catch up to get back with them. Same thing with monologue tax, giving us those treasure tokens, making so if they were able to cast 2 spells somehow, we could get those treasure tokens so we could play the game a little bit better. Propaganda, more tax on trying to attack you. Ristic Study, more tax on trying to cast a spell, unless they want you to draw cards. Rule of Law, each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. That's like the sense of this, is like monologue tax is a little bit backwards in this deck, but like it helps in the early game. Rule of Law, player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn, allowing you to just sit there and have fun yourself. Smothering Time, another way to get those treasure tokens, making sure you have the mana to do your stuff, while your opponents don't, unless they pay 2 every turn, which only on tapping 1 land each turn, they're going to not have. Sphere of Safety, making it even harder to attack us. We have 17 enchantments total, so it's 17 mana I had to pay, plus the 2 from Propaganda, 2 from Ghostly Prison. That's 21 mana they had to pay to attack us. So, in 21 turns, when they untap the land each turn, they'll be able to attack us eventually. Stasis, each player skips their untap step. During your upkeep, pay blue or bury Stasis. Really good card. Making sure your opponents don't untap anything, since everything's tapped anyway. And hopefully we're just able to swing in for some damage. Or have, what's his name? The one that with the 5 counters on him that wins the game. And then Trouble in Pairs, making sure our opponents can take extra turns. And, oops, sorry, my alarm went off. And whenever an opponent attacks you with 2 or more creatures, draw a card. Hopefully they're not going to be able to attack us with those creatures, but if they do, we're in luck. On to the second half of the deck. We have Arcane Denial for a counterspell for a counterspell, Cyclonic Rift. This way, if they do finally get their stuff out, no, they didn't. Dovin's Veto, Fierce Guardianship, more counterspells, more removal here with Generous Gift. Mana Drain for some more counterspell, Path to Exile for some removal. Basically, the general gist is when they finally got to do something, no, they didn't. Permission Denied and Render Silent, both stopping them from casting stuff just at all. Swan Song for counterspells, Harsh to Plowshares for removal. And then, if they did finally find a way to destroy us, we had Safari's Protection to make sure we don't lose the game. And then for our Planeswalkers, we have Dovin, Hand of Control, making so our opponents have to pay more to cast their spells. And then you could also do the -1 ability, where until your next turn, prevent all damage. We dealt to and buy target permanent and opponent controls. This way, if they do finally have that 1 creature in their Voltron deck that could beat us up, no, they don't. I'm just taking the toy. Here, go get it. And we have Karn, the Great Creator, shutting off our opponent's artifacts abilities. Once again, no Soul Rings, no Arcane Signets for them. But following that up, we have Narset, Parter of Veils. Sorry for any background noise. Sorry, I was going to say the pig wanted us to draw the dog around, but the dog wanted us to draw his stuffed pig around. But Narset, Parter of Veils, each player can draw more than 1 card each turn, making it so we shut them off. Another way, sometimes they have draw power decks, now they don't. And Teferi, Time Raveler. Each opponent can cast only one. Each opponent can only cast spells at sorcery speed, meaning they can only cast spells during their turn. This way, when they can only cast that 1 spell a turn, that means only during their turn. Then for our sorceries, approaches the second sun. When we cast it, put it back into the deck. We have to make sure we can keep drawing it and wait until we can draw it again. And then, if we were able to cast it 7 times, let's cast from your hand. Cast another spell named Approach the Second Sun. Yeah, so you only have to cast it twice. 7 is the amount of life gain, that's right. And then for board wipes, we have Armageddon. We're already making their lands enter tapped. We may as well just get rid of them. Austere Command for a board wipe. Farewell for a board wipe. Idyllic Tutor for searching out our best enchantments. Maybe a Smothering Tide, maybe a Ristic Study. Both are fun. And Supreme Verdict for a board wipe. But that's the deck that, and Henge, nope, I don't think there's any special lands in this one. Yep, no special lands in this one to go through. But if you guys liked the video, make sure you like the video. If you want to see more decks like this, make sure you like, comment, subscribe so you can stay tuned for future videos. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of the day.